Hello, everybody. I hope you are all having a good day. My name is Professor Faizan Ali. It's after a very long time that I'm live on YouTube today on the Research Beast YouTube channel. And I couldn't have a better person with me today to start these sessions on research methods and stuff like that. So today I am joined by my very close friend who I have known for almost 9 or 10 years, almost a decade since I finished my PhD. And I am going to bring him very soon into the screen just in a moment. And, because we actually want to welcome him very well, I'm going to do a round of applause for my good friend, Dr. Emrullah Erul. And I actually want to say a few things about him, even though he asked me not to praise him a lot. But I would say because he deserves a little bit of that praising. Dr. Emrullah and I met almost 9, probably 10 years ago when I just finished my PhD. I moved to US. And he was still a PhD student then at Texas A&M University, where he was getting his I think at that time a master's and then later for PhD in the same university.
Yes.
Currently, Dr. Emrullah is an associate professor at Izmir Katib Çelebi University, where obviously he's doing wonderful things. But his PhD is in tourism studies and tourism management, and his research really focuses on sustainable tourism and something that is very close to my heart. That's the resident and tourism relationships. Now, I have read a lot of your work, Dr. Emrullah, because obviously I respect your work, your research, and all that. And something very interesting is that even though you look very young, obviously, and I have seen a lot of your research that is published in top-tier journals in our field, like Tourism Management, Journal of Sustainable Tourism, Journal of Travel Research, and Current Issues in Tourism. So congratulations on publishing very well in these top journals. However, I would also say that, and perhaps maybe down the road, we can talk about this a little bit as well, that you are also recipient of one of the most prestigious scholarships in Europe called Marie Curie Scholarship. I must admit, I did not know about this scholarship, how prestigious it is, until I moved to Ireland very recently. And then I was told that it's an extremely, extremely prestigious scholarship. In fact, the whole University of Galway even only gets 1 or 2 Marie Curie scholarship winners every year. So that in itself is a great thing. And that's why I say I couldn't have a better person than yourself today to speak to me. Obviously, I am also looking forward to learn from you, but then also to the people who are online on YouTube who are watching this. So currently, I'm only streaming it on YouTube. So those of you who are watching us on YouTube, feel free to use the chat function or the chat facility on YouTube to put your comments or any questions or anything that you may have. We'll take some of those questions towards the end of this session and we'll talk about them. With that, Dr. Emrullah, if you want to say a few words, and then I can put the slides on the screen and then we can go from there. Thank you one more time for accepting my invitation.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thanks to everyone who participated today, but special thanks for Dr. Ali, who is inviting me this amazing organization. But he promised me that he will not make this kind of introduction. But as you see that right now, I became a little bit shy and my face became red. He's just exaggerating a little bit, but something is true. We met almost 10 years ago, approximately 10 years ago. It was either 2016 or 2017 at those time around this year. But what happened, he didn't know. When I met with him, everybody was mentioning about his name and everybody was saying that, have you ever met with Faizan? He's a good methodologist, he's a good scholar. And I thought that he's either assistant professor or associated professor, but he was, I think, the last year of his PhD. And while I was trying to build a network with others or doing some coffee time, he was always going some research projects. I still remember that one. He found some Korean group and I invited him to drink a coffee. he said that, no, I don't have time. I need to meet with that group, because at those times some QR code they have some QR code project with their bracelets, and it took his attention. And I told myself, what a genius guy. And right now, whoever thinks tourism and technology, Faizan is coming the first in my mind. Of course, Cihan Çaban also as well. So that's what I want to say as an introduction right now.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Emrullah, for your kind words. I truly appreciate it. Please feel free to go ahead from here. I'm going to go into the background, and then you can just continue with your presentation. I'll also monitor the chat to see if there's any questions or anything from the chat. Then I can put them on the screen later on as we move forward. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and the stage is all yours. Please continue.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is okay and everything is fine. I'm Emrullah Erul, Associate Professor at İzmir Katip Çelebi University in the Department of Tourism Management. I am from beautiful Turkey. And as Faizan mentioned, that I did my master and PhD degree at Texas A&M University. And I also forgot about that one. He also mentioned that Marie Curie scholarship. It was a good honor, but it wouldn't happen with the two amazing scholars, with Dr. Xavier Font and Dr. Manuel Alecter Ribeiro. Hopefully, everybody can receive this kind of scholarship if they dedicate themselves. Today, we will talk about quantitative research design, and if you are ready, let's start. First, I will give some brief outline. What will we do today? First, I will try to explain what quantitative research design is. Then I will try to show how can arrange a research questionnaire or formulate hypothesis. I will try to talk differences between them briefly. Then we will talk about some sampling techniques, and we will talk about data collection types. And I will try to give some example in tourism field. And hopefully, as an output, maybe you can draft your research plan. If you are ready, let's start. So before we talk about the motivation of the conducting research, let's briefly define what research is. So we can say research is addressing our problems. So we have questions and we want to need some information, some answers. Even in the daily life, we may do some research. Let's say I want to buy some product, and I will go through to websites and I will check the reviews, check the prices, check the quality. So what I'm doing, I am curious to buy something, or I need to buy something, and I need to satisfy that needs or that curiosity. So research is also allowing us to address this kind of answering these questions. But Kochter in 2004, he mainly divided this motivation under the 5 categories. The most general one is obtaining a research degree. As Faizan mentioned that I and him, we were graduate students and we want to just finish our dissertation. Also in the undergraduate program or master program, they need to finish their thesis. So if they pursue this kind of degree that can open some career advancements, so they need to do some research. Or there are some problems that hasn't been solved. So these unsolved problems, to address these unsolved problems, researchers, they are doing some research. Or they just want to have some intellectual pleasure or satisfaction or fulfillment, or they want to provide service for their community, or they want to contribute their community. And sometimes also they just want to gain respect, or they just want to be recognized for the academic community. So briefly, the research design is the blueprint of our research that allows defining our problem, collecting and organizing our data, analyzing our data, and interpreting the results. So with this way, we can make a better decisions. And there are 3 main approaches that we have in the research design. The first one is quantitative, then qualitative, and later there's a mixed method that combines both of them. But generally, researchers, they are using these two main concepts. Even though it seems rival in the tourism field, they are complementary, so they complete each other. So the main differences: quantitative research focus on measuring and testing relationship using numerical data and skills. So they just focus on numbers and measurement. And if we talk about some non-numerical measurements, such as exploring meanings, beliefs, and experiences through using words and interviews, that is qualitative research. Quantitative research focus on more large and representative sample, and qualitative, they just focus on small or purposeful sample. As I said before, they are using some statistical analysis, and they use some software programs such as Amos and Smart PLS. On the other hand, qualitative research, they are using some thematic coding analysis such as MVivo and Maxuda. And why quantitative research matters in tourism? Again, we can divide under the four categories. First, quantitative research help us to identify patterns or models in individuals' behaviors, such as tourist and resident behavior. You may see those identification in the figures. You can see some models on the papers or thesis or dissertation, or they help us some real action about our results. So they can help us support evidence-based policy and management decisions, or we can compare our results with other studies or other destinations, and it also provide objective insight for marketing strategies, sometimes for policymaker decisions, or sometimes planners. And let's briefly talk about some different types of quantitative research design. The first one is descriptive research. Descriptive research describes the sample population, and there is no manipulation in this type of quantitative research. Briefly, they use survey or observation, and they use descriptive statistics such as standard deviation, means, median, mode, and frequencies. If we want to give some example, let's say the sample profile of tourists in Dublin in 2025, or you may see that age, income, or education level of some residents in some destination. On the other hand, correlation research, it identifies the relationship between two or more variables, and they don't look for the cause and effect. So without causation, we look to relationship. We just want to learn how directly related with each other, or how their relation is strong or weak. In experimental research, if you want to give an example, actually, in the correlation research, let's say how a destination image may influence the tourist revisit intention in the specific destination. And in the experimental research, in contrast to correlation research, we look to cause and effect. So there are two groups. The first group is the control group, and the second group is experimental group. And in the experimental group, we are doing some experimental treatment. So we are using some manipulation, and in both groups, we assign the participant randomly. Then, based on this manipulation, how it affects our results, and we compare these two groups. And in the quasi-experimental research, it's similar to experimental research, but in that point, both groups not randomly assigned, and there is no fully control. But on the other hand, again, they are looking for cause and effect. There are some steps to conduct quantitative research. And these are not definite steps that I can tell to you. There are some other steps also, some other scholars they can mention. But for me, I am using as it is. So sometimes my students are coming, hey, professor, I have data, or some colleagues they are coming, I have data, we can do some research together. but in what topic? And so what kind of gap you fill it out, or what's our main purposes, or what's our main object, what's our problem? So before we collect the data, first we need to determine how our topic is unique, how we fill the gap. We need to answer so what questions. So first we need to define our problem. After we determine our research question or formulate our hypothesis, we need to find our target. Who is our target? Where will be our study? Then after that one, we need to develop the instruments. So we need to arrange our variables. We need to arrange our scales. After then, we need to collect data by using some different techniques. Then we need to analyze. And after we analyze, we need to interpret our results, comparing with previous studies, showing the similarities or differences. And finally, we make some conclusions as a practically or theoretically, and we need to also mention the limitations of our study or suggestion for the future research. Let's start the first step. So as I mentioned before, the first step is defining our problem. In that point, there are some things I need to mention. I have already mentioned, but let's emphasize again. The topic that we choose, it shouldn't be copycat. It shouldn't be done before. It shouldn't be repetition of existing research. So it should be original, and that should have some significant impact or some kind of contribution, and it should fill out some gaps, and that contribution can contribute to methodology, knowledge, or theory, and the research question should be clear and meaningful. And maybe I will mention later, but it just came to my mind. I just want to say right now how we find this gap. Before the research question, we need to read the literature more and more to see what is going on, so we can improvise our knowledge. Then we can try to find some absences, or you have some other information. You can connect this information with the current information, or from different area you can transfer that knowledge to, let's say, in the tourism field. So you need to read more and more. In English, if you wanna speak better, you need to listen more and more. They are connected to each other. Also, if you wanna write better, you need to also read more and more. So if we don't read more oftenly, we cannot find a gap. But you can find any topic, even when you're looking on the TV, or when you watching the news, or when you searching the websites. Maybe you can find also some unique topic as well. Let's talk about the research question. So let's say, as I already mentioned, does destination image affect revisit intentions? So this is our research question. Research question guides our research. And on the other hand, hypothesis just predict our outcomes. So the hypothesis can be destination image has a positive and significant impact on revisit intention. Okay, we have already finished the first step. Let's talk about the second step. Let's talking about who is our target. So there is a population, sometimes they call as a universe, and there is a sample. So all researchers, they want to reach about the population, but it is hard to reach out them. The brief definition of the population is the collection of all of interests that are our interests that can come from responses, measurements, counts, and outcomes. But as I said before, it is hard to reach out the whole population. So that's why several scholars, they use sample. So sample are the subset of the population. They are representative, and we are making inference about the population. Why they are using sample? Because samples save our money budget, save our time, and also save our efforts. Sometimes researchers, they don't have all of them. So they don't have enough energy, they don't have enough budget, they don't have enough time. So that's why they would prefer to use sample. But we shouldn't forget about it. In one population, maybe we will have 1,000 or 1 million different sample, and each sample can be different than each other. And the sample is not the population. We will not get exactly the same number that we receive from the sample. Then, when we talk about the sample, let's talk about two main types of sampling techniques. The first one, the probability sampling. So probability sampling involves random selection that allows researcher to make strong inference about the whole population. And there are four main categories. So the simple random sampling, I can say one of the, again, expensive techniques because everybody has a equal chance. It is fair sampling technique. If you want to give some example, we can say, for example, lottery. Everybody has a chance if they buy the tickets. Or let's say right now, Faizan mentioned that there are 100 audience that we try to receive. So let's say we have 100 participants right now online, and I want to evaluate their opinion. So instead of reaching out all 100 participants, I just want to talk 10 of them, and I want to use simple random sampling. What will we do? Faizan will use random number generator and give you some numbers starting from 1 to 100. Then again, he will select randomly 10 participants, let's say number 10, number 22, number 48, number 60. Then I will try to reach them. Then I will ask them to evaluate my presentation. For the stratified sampling, we divide the whole population into some strata that we can call as a group or subgroups based on some characteristics. Let's say again the same example. There are 100 participants right now who are watching us. Some of them coming from Europe, some of them coming from, let's say, Asia, and some of them coming from other continents, or let's say USA. So we will calculate their percentages. Let's say Europe side, they have 50 people, and in the Asia side, there are 40 people, and the rest of the continents, they have 10 people. Again, I need 10 participants to evaluate my presentation. What will I do? I will take 5 from Europe because there are 50 people over there, 4 from Asia side, and again, 1 just from the other continents. So in this sampling technique, every group has a equal chance to be selected. So that's why also it's a good sampling techniques. And in systematic sampling, again, we randomly assign everyone. Then we randomly selected some starting point. After we selecting this starting point, we will select every nth individual. Let's say our starting point is number 5. Then I need every 10 person from there. So I will invite number 5, number 15, number 25, number 35, going through 95. So I will talk these 10 people to evaluate my presentation. And finally, for the cluster sampling, again, we randomly divide some subgroups that we call cluster. But in that time, I randomly select just one group, and I will try to reach all those group members. Let's also briefly mention non-probability sampling technique. Again, non-probability sampling involves non-random selection, and that allows researcher to easy and accessible participant that save time and effort. And there are 4 main types of the non-probability sampling. The first one is convenience. Again, in this sampling techniques, participants who are more accessible or easily selected, such as, let's say, our students, can be as an example of that one. But the problem in here, Maybe these kind of participant, let's say students, they may not be representative of our study. So that will cause some problem. So we need to diversify our sampling. On the other hand, in the purpose of sampling, I have some purpose in my participants. Let's say I need the individual who are over than 18. They have a tourism background. They have at least 5 years experience working in hotels. So I have some specific criteria for my participants. So these are the purposive sampling. For the snowball sampling, we are reach out some participants, and they also refer some ones who may fit to our study. So we can also reach out them. So it allows our hard to reach population. And briefly, quota sampling, we describe our sample based on some categories, let's say gender, and I specifically take 50 participants male and 50 participants female to learn their perception about my, again, presentation. Then let's talk about the sample size. This is another concern or issue. Okay, I will collect data, but how many people I need to reach out? So there are some common accepted rules. I cannot say it's 100% true, but it's generally researchers, they are using it. So the first one is rule of thumb. What I saw some studies they used. So let's say you have items. So you need to find at least 10 to 15 participants per items. So let's say I have 50 items in my scale, and I need at least in that point 500 or 750 participants as a sample size. Or they can use some online calculations such as G-power, or according to Creasy and Morgan in 1970 indicated that when a population between 75,000 and 1 million, the threshold level can be 384. This is also one of the most common and cited reference. And on the other hand, Cohen et al. In 2005, they were claiming that when the P and Q value is 0.5 and confidential interval is 95%, the sample size of 400 is sufficient. After we talk about that one, let's right now talk about development of the instruments. So here is in the left corner, there is a table that shows modified emotional solidarity scale. So these are the scale. There are some 14 items, such as I identify with residents of blah blah. I have a lot in common with residents of blah blah. So each line and row shows the items, or we call statements, and each column show the agreement scale, 7-point Likert agreement scale, starting from strongly disagree, going through strongly agree. So I will suggest to everyone, you may use valid solid scale adapted from previous studies instead of creating a new scale. This emotional solidarity scale, I think my advisor, let's also mention his name, Dr. Wuznum. If I am someone in the tourism academia, thanks to him, I learned everything from him. He created emotional solidarity scale in 2010, actually at the end of the 2009, at the beginning of the 2010. So what he did, in 1915, Emile Durkheim, the French sociologist, he was using emotional solidarity. And what he was doing, he was examining the Australian Aboriginal religious group, how they are connected to each other, how their communication. And according to his idea, as they engage similar beliefs and interact with each other, there will be some strong emotions, some strong bonds, social bonds. So Dr. Woosnam transferred this emotional solidarity into tourism, transferred the tourism in 2010, and his idea was saying that as resident and tourists interact with each other, engage in similar behavior, and share similar beliefs, some degree of emotions would emerge and create a strong bond. And since that one, he got cited a lot, and it became a theory. And what I did at the beginning, I met with him in 2010. He was using in tourist perspective. I convert that emotional solidarity scale as a resident perspective, and I connected with that one with the theory of planned behavior. That was my brief idea about my dissertation, and I also published 2 journals from that idea. So why I am telling this one, I didn't do something so new. I just play a little bit, look at the different perspective, and I connected the 2 theories together. From that point, why I can also tell to you why the theory is important. So the brief idea about the theory, let's define the theory first. So as the scientific theory is kind of hypothesis that has been extensively tested and evaluated from the scientific community and supported by them. And if our research should be grounded with theory to be able to acceptable as a scientific and to increase their quality. And the theory is kind of blueprint of our research that shows the relationship of our variables and explain our outcomes. In that point, theory is also important. I just want to mention that one. So we define our problem, we select our samples, then we develop our instrument and talk about our modeling and variables. Let's briefly mention what is the variable. So there are 4 types of variables. The first one is dependent variable, as I already mentioned that one. So it's a kind of outcome affected by the other variables. In our previous example, revisit intention was my dependent variable. So as I said before, my problem statement, how destination image may influence the tourist revisit intention. So destination image is affecting the dependent variable revisit intention. So in that point, independent variable is my destination image and influence other variable. And there are also 2 types of variables who are mediator and moderator. I'm sorry about that one. So it's always causing confusion. So mediator mediates the relationship, explain the mechanism of influence. In my example, if my independent variable is destination image and my dependent variable revisit intention, let's say I want to find some direct relationship, but I couldn't find. So maybe I can use satisfaction. So my independent variable may influence satisfaction, and satisfaction explain my revisit intention, or make it stronger to that relationship. On the other hand, moderator can be, let's say, age or income or education. So modify the relationship, try to strengthen the relationship. The last point for the instrument and data collection, when we are creating or arranging our skills, just try to be sure our words are clear, short, and understandable from everyone. So we shouldn't be so academic. We shouldn't use so academic level of information in our skill. It should be kind of elementary level, so everyone who can participate, they can understand our items. We may use Likert scales. It can be 5-point or 7-point scale. We need to have a balance between negative and positive statements, and we need to do some pre-tests, such as some pilot tests, before we are designing our surveys. And there are some common mistakes that is happening when we are arranging survey. The first one is we should avoid double-barreled question. Some example can be, let's say there is a questionnaire. It was saying that hotels are clean and affordable, and I'm just trying to participate this survey. But for me, the hotel that I stay may be clean, but for my perspective, not affordable. So how can I select? I agree or disagree. So if we have this kind of question, we should avoid this double-barrel question, or we need to avoid leading questions that can create measurement errors. So if they start, don't you agree that this is a silly question, I can say. Maybe I'm not agree with that opinion. You cannot lead me or force me to answer specifically that question. Or our words, as I said before, should be simple, clean as much as it can, and it shouldn't create some confusion. Let's say some example. Last couple of months, I start to go to gym to doing workout to lose my Turkish muscle and to gain real muscle. So for me regularly means 3 times a week or 4 times a week to going to gym. But I know that Faizan is so athletic. He is going maybe every day. His regular is every day. So in that point, we should also be careful. So regular can cause some confusion for the participant. Let's talk about data collection techniques that I will give each of them, each of their advantages and disadvantages. So the first one is personal interviews. So face-to-face interview, let's talk about first advantages. To be honest, after my PhD, I promised myself I will never ever collect the data just by myself. So I either buy the data or I ask my colleagues to collect the data. It is one of the hardest stuff, I think, in my perspective, in the whole academic career. So the first one, let's say we want to collect a survey and we want to do face-to-face interview. When people face-to-face, when they are face-to-face or confront with interviewer, they immediately respond or participate the survey. In that point, we will have a high response rate and we will have a clear communication. So we can explain the survey, we can explain some questions, and we can make notes in which question they can hesitate, in which question they don't understand. So in this point, they have this kind of advantages. On the other hand, face-to-face interview, they have a high cost, they are expensive. Why? Let's say I want to collect data in Dublin, so I need to fly over there, so there will be some travel cost. Then I need to stay, if Faizan is not hosting me, I need to stay in some hotels. That will cost me also, if I stay, let's say 2 months, again, I have some accommodation costs. Then maybe I don't have enough time, I need to find some other interview, so I need to pay their money as well. So with that perspective, it is costly. And other stuff, if I hire some interviewer and they have less experience, they can create some problems with their attitudes, with their mimics, with their tones, behavior, that can also decrease the response rate. So these are some advantages and disadvantages of the face-to-face interviews. Another old method that used to be used for the previous scholars is phone survey. It is less expensive than face-to-face interview, and you may reach more and wide environment. But again, there are some problems on the telephone survey as well. The first one is sampling issues. So we may not be sure who we are talking about. Even though, let's say, I call some specific person, maybe instead of him, his wife or his children open the phone and imitate him, or they say they are over than 18, maybe they are less than 15. Maybe they say they are living in Turkey, but they are living in the USA. So we don't know. We will not be sure about that one. Also, there are some non-response error is happening. What I mean that I cannot open unknown numbers. Also, at the middle of the maybe survey, their battery died, and I cannot keep continue from the beginning. So that survey also will going to trash. So, and also there is some limited interaction. Let's talk my two favorite survey techniques. The first one, self-administered survey. Let me give some tips also for undergraduate students or graduate students or some early career researchers. If you want to collect the data, the best way is just introduce yourself first, but don't forget to say you are a student. I remember, even though I graduated, when I tried to collect data with my students, I was saying that I am a student. I was cutting my mustache and beard. I was dressing such a student. I was imitating, because in each family, there are some person, they went to either university or graduate school, so they can make empathy and they will try to help you. So don't ever forget about to emphasize your student. Then after you introduce the project, you will print your survey and give them the participant and saying that whenever you are done, just let me know. I can pick it up my survey, maybe the same date or maybe later that day. So in that point, what will happen? You will save your time, save your money, and save your effort. So you will reach more people. And let's say if I do the face-to-face interview, maybe in a day I can only talk 7 or 10 person, and each participant will take maybe 1 hour or 2 hours. But if I do self-administered survey, I can reach out maybe 30, 40 people. I will just be quick as much as I can. Then I will collect the whole survey. But what is the problem? In contrast to face-to-face survey, when you leave the survey with the participants, they are either becoming lazy, even though they cannot say, they are accepting the survey. Either they are not filling out the survey. Maybe sometimes they are throwing that survey, or they are making some plain or trash ball and they are throwing the trash. Or they just choose random number and fill it out the survey without reading it. So with that way, we can say there are some issues is happening in self-administered survey. And my last survey techniques is online survey. Again, it is one of the cheapest techniques if you will not buy the data from some specific companies. It has a low cost. We will have high response rate. It will save time for us and for also participant, because if they get bored, they can save the questionnaire and they can continue later. And we can arrange our design by using some images, some notes, some stuff. But the problem, again, sampling issues. Although we want to talk to people who are living in Izmir, maybe the company just arrange the people who are living in the USA. So we don't know where they are, who they are, what are they doing. Also, my sampling is also on the people who has a Wi-Fi access or internet access. So we need to also diversify our sample in that point. Let's also briefly mention some data collection tools. So Google Forms is the free one, the free tools. I'm using frequently, which you arrange everything by yourself. On the other hand, I used to use Qualtrics, one of the good company, but it's so expensive. You will just give your survey. They are arranging everything, and they are also allowing you to make your design as well. You just specifically mentioning who you need, how much people you need, and you are sharing your survey. Then in a week or 2 weeks, they are sharing the data with you. I remember I did self-administered survey 3 months. Also 2 months I spent for data coding, because I reached out several people. I think it was around 700 or 1,000. So in that point, these companies allow you so data coding. You don't need to worry about the data coding. There are other companies, is SurveyMonkeys and MTurk. And you may also use the secondary data sources from Booking.com or TripAdvisor or some other social medias. Okay, how we convince the people? This is another good stuff. How we decrease the non-response error. So there are three main reasons why we have response error. So the first one, we want to reach some people, but we have failure to deliver that survey. What I mean, maybe they change their address, they change their phone number, they change their email address, or the businesses or the people who we want to participate, they are no longer in that specific location. So we need to update our information, or naturally they want to refuse to participate the survey. Why? Maybe they have some trust issue, maybe they don't trust us, maybe they have a bad experience with the interviewers, or they don't have flexibility to do that specific survey, or the topic is not interesting for them, or they don't like the design of the survey, or our higher interviews, they don't have good experience, so they also decrease the participation. In another one is unable to participate. So we connected the people, they really eager to participate our survey, but they have some language barrier. Maybe they cannot read in English, or they cannot even read. Maybe they have never been in the schools, or they are old, so they don't have enough energy to spend time with us, or they have some health issues. So how we solve those problems? As I said before, don't forget to mention you are a student and you need help to graduate. So this is the first solution. The second main solution is gifts or inducements. So I don't know how it is in Europe, but I saw in the USA, I also saw in the Turkey. If you give them even just a bottle of water or pencil, or some mugs, hats, I don't know, it became attractive. So people are coming, approaching you, what we are doing, and you are saying that we are doing some study. If you want to participate, we can give you some gifts such as this one, and they are immediately jumping on it. So everybody likes the free stuff. The second things I can say, you can change your data collection techniques. Let's say you are doing face-to-face interview, but you don't have enough time and you have less budget left. So what you will do, maybe you can do online data collection, or you can hire more experienced interview instead of less experienced interview. Also, let me share some personal experience about that one. Dr. Wuznum, when he was my mentor, he was also mentor of Coyote Alashinloye. He is right now assistant or associate professor in University of Central Florida. Also, Donjo Eric, I think he is in the Korea. He is also a well-known scholar. So he sent three of us to collect a survey in Galveston, and he gave each of us maybe 50 survey. I don't remember. Coyote went. He came with the whole survey empty because, unfortunately, I had to say, there is some racism issues. So he became angry and he came back immediately. Eric, he is a good person, but he was shy a little bit, so he collected a little bit. But Faizan knows the Turkish personality. We are brave, we are friendly, and we are a little bit sympathetic. So I collect the whole survey, and everybody participated to my survey. So in that point, either you need to check it out the cultural background, or you need to find some people who are familiar for the collecting the survey. Or our survey length is really too long. Maybe we can make it shorter. Let's say we have 12 pages survey. Nobody wants to participate that survey. But if you have just 1 or 2 pages, everybody can try to finish that survey. Or people take our survey, so we can send them reminders or notifications to finish that one. Or again, we need to clearly introduce our project or ourselves. There are some common mistakes in quantitative research design. Let's mention that one too. So the first one is conceptual mistakes. So maybe the theory that we use is unclear or not fitting to our study, or the hypotheses are weak. Or methodological mistakes, maybe we are using the wrong methodology and we don't have enough sample size, or we have a bad measurement. Or we do some analytical mistakes. We misapply the statistics, or we made the wrong interpretation. And there are other issues also. Let's say poorly defined variables. If we will not define our variables clearly, that can result problem or confusion for the readers and for the reviewers and for the journals as well. What I mean, let's say we are talking about tourist satisfaction as a variable. Okay, tourist satisfaction, but in which aspect? Are you talking about quality or money or clearance and etc.? So we need to be specifically emphasize or clearly explain everything. And convenience sampling, as I've mentioned before, these participants, they are accessible, they are available, we are easily access to them. But for such as the students, if we just use those participants, we may have some issues. Maybe they cannot be representative with our sample. So in that point, we need to diversify our study, and we need to not approach them. If we have to just use this kind of people or participants such as students, at least we need to mention in the limitation section why we have to use students. Or sometimes researchers, they are so eager to test each of the possible relationships. So they are using several hypotheses, several paths. So that create the model more complicated and create huge confusion or headache for the audience. Or sometimes the researcher forget to use control variables such as moderator variables, let's say income or age level. Let's talk the last 2 tips. How we can ensure the quality of survey. As I said before, we need to read more and more. So we need to review similar studies to compare with our study or to get more idea. We need to use more visual models. Sometimes I see that, let's say they are using Amos, they are using SPSS, let's say, or Amos. They are just copy pasting from their figures. That seems so ugly. Be more designable, be more specific or visualize as much as you can. We need to do some pilot survey to test our scale. Let's make our analysis simple as much as we can do. And we need to check our data. Is there any missing data, or do we have a normality or outlier in our data? We need to, do we have normality issue, or do we have outliers in our data? Or if we have negative statements, items, maybe we can do reverse code as well. For the general research, what should we do or what we shouldn't? We need to avoid plagiarism. I also still remember in 2012 when I started my master's degree, the first week all the professors, they just mentioned about the plagiarism I have never heard before. And they were saying that you need to avoid the plagiarism in your assignments, in your quizzes, in your thesis. It doesn't matter. You cannot copy paste something from someone else. That's stealing. And I thought, okay, I can just paraphrase and use it, but I forgot to cite those sources. Then again, I got minus or 0. So when you use the sources, please cite them. Even though it is your sentences, you have to cite them. Citing someone is not decreasing your value. It's actually increase your value. I think a few days ago, again, Dr. Ali shared his PhD notes, and he was saying that I cited several scholars. Right now, they became my friends. That's really made me happy. So as you see that citing someone, sometimes even opening some network, and they can even collaborate together. So in that point, I would suggest to everyone, cite as much as you can, but if it is related with your research, don't cite for nothing. Also, data fabrication. We shouldn't play with our data. That's not ethical at all. And if the reviewers or your mentor is good at the statistics, they can understand what you are doing, then that can cause a huge problem for you. Also, if you have some issues with your colleagues that your co-author, I can say, you need to solve that problem before submit your thesis or you submit your manuscript, and prevent the duplicate submission. So don't submit the same manuscript with different journals to save time or to becoming a genius person. I have been reviewing several journals since 2014, and I think I reviewed 155 SSCI journal. Sometimes I met this kind of idea. I reject in tourism management perspective, then I saw same article at the same day in Journal of Sustainable Tourism to being reviewed. I even didn't submit my revision. Then I directly reached out to the editor. I said that they also submit the same manuscript in this journal. Then they gave some red alert about that one. Also, we need to revise our submission before submit. What I mean, maybe we cannot see our mistakes. Allow to read someone else to see your absences, and then please read each of the comments that you receive from the reviewers or from your mentors or your advisors, and manage the similarity. Okay, I am almost done. Let's sum it up. So the first step, we need to have a clear research question. So we need to answer so what question, how we contribute to research, what's our main object, what's our purpose, how can we fill the out gap. Then we need to do some comprehensive literature review. We need to read more and more. In the literature review, we need to define our variables. We need to mention about our theories. Then we need to give each detail of our methods. We need to mention about our study sites, our sampling techniques, how we collect the data, when did we collect the data, which items we deleted, which items we put inside, what kind of agreement scale we used, or which kind of research design we are using. We need to mention each of the detail. Then we need to have a robust result, strong result and discussion. After that one, we need to have a conclusion. So in the discussion section, we can compare our findings with the previous studies, and at the end of the conclusion, we can have some practical implications and theoretical implication, and we have some limitation. Let's briefly mention in each steps. So abstract is kind of your screenshot of your whole manuscript that summarize everything briefly. So you should have a good title that shouldn't be too long or too short, but should be attractive, and you should have some unique and important topic. You need to mention your state. You need to mention or state your research question, why you are doing this one, what's your aim. You need to mention your research methodology. Let's say you need to mention your study area, how many sampling size, sampling techniques, you need to mention that one. You need to mention your key findings with some statistical results. Also, you need to mention why this research is important, how they are contributing to academia. And I think 2 years ago, I think Faizan was also there, 2024. There was a conference in Istanbul, MidCon, And John Paul was over there. He was the editor of Journal of Marketing in Tourism, as far as I remember the title. And he was saying that when I see in the abstract that was saying that a practical and theoretical implication will be mentioned at the end of the manuscript, I'm immediately giving the rejection, death rejection. So if you want to mention some implication that you found, just briefly mention that one, don't be generalized. So everything is important. You need to briefly explain everything step by step, and you shouldn't be passed over than 250 words. And each keyword selection is important to receive more citation, to be seen more. You need to find good keywords. And for the intro and literature review, in the introduction, you can start with some story to take the attention of the audience, or you can share some statistics. And in the literature review, you can mention, as I said before, your relationship between the variables. So you can explain each relations, then mention your theories. But please ensure your literature review is current and includes all core readings. Sometimes I see that people, they are using 90s or 18s references or citations. Please don't use outdated references. I'm not saying don't use ever. Use rarely, not so often. Just follow up the current research. Or if you are using many irrelevant resources, that is also so ridiculous. Sometimes I also see that they are putting some scholars, but they have never mentioned about that one, or even artificial intelligence created that citation. So be sure about that one. Or in one sentence, they are using median of the citations. There is no need to put this kind of reference staking. And ensure your in-text sentences and reference are completely each other and writing correctly. And in the methodology, I told you we need to mention each of the detail. Our research design, our data collections, sometimes our limitations. We need to mention our response rate. If we transfer from English to Turkish, we need to mention about that one as well. And it should be correct and properly that the techniques we use, and it should fit our research question. In the results section, we will have several tables that showing the demographic or our EFA or CFA results, or sometimes the fit indices for the measurement and structural equation model. Or we have validity and reliability table. And at the end, I think we will have hypothesis relationship that shows our paths are supported or not supported. And the last one in the discussion and conclusion section, I already mentioned that one. We need to briefly summarize what we are doing and what we did. Then in the discussion section, we compare our findings with the previous studies, how they are similar or how they are different than our findings. We shouldn't repeat what did we found in the results section. We just discussed our contribution of the results. We need to draw the implication is a practically, what I mean, how this implication can be have been used in the real world, or theoretical implication we may use. And finally, we need to mention our limitations. Sometimes researchers trying to hide their limitations. I have never been hiding anything. Just show your weaknesses so they cannot attack on you. Say that my sample size is not enough to be representative, or we didn't compare with other destinations, so future studies can compare with the other destination as well. So this kind of stuff may be helpful for you. Not so don't be shy. Mention about that one. And another stuff I also put over there. If you are lazy to read the whole manuscript or whole dissertation, what can you do? You can go to this limitation and feature studies section after you read the abstract to get some brief idea. just read over there, because they will give some suggestions, so you can take that suggestion to receive a new idea. I think I am done. Here are the studies that I use for this presentation, and I can also recommend to others to be able to read to get better idea for the research design and quantitative analysis. Thanks again for your attention. If you have any questions, I am eager to respond it. Here are my some information.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Emrullah. Very good. I know how difficult it can be to summarize everything in 1 hour, but you did a great job. Thank you so much. There are obviously a lot of questions that we have. Time is limited. So I will just go very quickly through some of the questions and then maybe very short answers to these questions if we can go. So the question, we have one question here. It says, I'm working on a model, and after consulting the theories, I can link the constructs on foundations of more than 2 theories. Can I refer to more than 2 theories while developing hypothesis?
Sure. Let me answer this one. Definitely, you can use 2 theories together. You can combine these two theories together. You can even emphasize that one. Finally, I will, as I show in my model, in my presentation, I also used 2 theories. One of them was emotional solidarity scale. That was just explaining 3 paths or 3 relationships. And the other 3 paths, I used theory of planned behavior. Also, in my other studies, I use social exchange theory with some other theories. So I think it's even better than use just one theory to using multiple theories for a model. There are many scholars that they are doing that one, and they are specifically emphasizing that one. That also kind of gap you are filling out. That's a good question. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. So a couple of things I would just add. So your answer is absolutely right. But I just say that the way the question is referred, it's also mixing a few things, right? So when we say that, can we use more than 2 theories to develop hypothesis? Well, for hypothesis development, you normally need to use as many references as possible. So when you are using references to support your hypothesis, those are not necessarily theories. You can use any type of theoretical support, meaning that if I have a paper I established, like I found and established a relationship, and you are using the same relationship, you can refer to my paper or Dr. Emrullah's paper, any other. So that's a separate situation. But then you always need the theoretical support to design your model, and then you can do obviously more than 2 theories. However, the more theories you add to your model, the more difficult it is to justify why you are adding all these theories. So obviously, you can find a lot of support for one theory, for another one, for the third one, but the link of these 2 or 3 theories is not very easy. So just because somebody tell you to add 3 theories or 4 theories to make your model complicated, that's not the justification. So make sure you work on that justification.
By the way, you just remind me something that let me contribute a little bit more because it's a good question. For example, the social exchange theory, I think in 1992 that was used, they only look at the monetary relationship and everybody just start to attack that one. They only look at the financial relationship. So in that point, if your model have some kind of, let's say, emotions or some social development, but you have some economical impact, you need to use also social exchange theory. So you can say that social exchange theory is not adequate to explain that relationship by itself. So I need more theories to support my model. So this way you can emphasize.
That's right. Thank you so much. And the second question is also very similar to the first one, just a bit different. Empirical research, how can we link theory to research model? So do you want to take it or you want me to answer?
You can start and I can continue.
Okay. So, well, obviously in empirical research or quantitative research, because our philosophy is positivist, and we take an approach called deductive approach, which means that you take inspiration for your model from previous research. So you have to use previous research in order to come up for a solution to your particular question, which in quantitative research is mainly your model. Now, when you create a model, all this model, the base of it needs to be linked to a theory. We sometimes in research, we call it overarching theory or overall theory or something like that. So for instance, many people in marketing use SOR theory, which is stimulus organism response. It's very broad, it's very, very generic. Now you can obviously use this theory, but stimulus can be anything in marketing, right? So it can be the product, it can be the price, it can be the promotion, it can be the place, distribution channel, anything that you want to study. Similarly, organism can be anything. It can be emotion, it can be perception, and then response can be any behavior type of thing. So you need this theory to base your model on, but how you base that model is coming from literature, not particularly theory, right? So that's kind of how the linkage needs to be. If you need to add anything, Dr.
No,
Emrullah,
no, I
please.
agree with you. That's why SOR or value attitude behavior theory is one of the common theories, because you may change the value, you may change the attitude, or you may change the stimuli that influence your organization. So you already respond very well. I don't need to add anything else.
Thank you. Here's another question says, how can we know if we need to use 5 or 7 construct? I guess what they mean is 5 or 7 points,
Yeah, this is
right?
one
So,
of the common question everybody is asking. Should we use the 5-point Likert scale or let's say 7-point Likert scale? For me, there is no huge differences, but if you are becoming more specific or more sensitive responses or strong responses, or it depends on your sample or sample size, I can say, it can change, but it wouldn't bother your results so much, even using 5-point scale or 7. But I am not saying I am 100 true, but I tried. It worked for efficiently. So
mhm.
if you want to code, you can say.
Right, perfect. So what I'll add to this is that it depends on obviously how much detail do you want in your data and how do you want to zoom into data, right? Now, here's another thing is also the cultural background of your respondents. So if let's say you are collecting data in some place like America, where people take sides like positive or negative sides to extreme, then you want to give them a little bit less
Absolutely.
points, let's say 5 points, so that if they stick to extreme, it would be 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. But let's say if you're collecting data from place like China or Thailand, where people want to stick to the middle all the time, they don't want to take the positions, they like really want to stay in the middle. And for them, 7 point or even 9 point is better, because then middle becomes 3 or 4 points or 5 points, right? So that's something important. According to research, however, 7 point scale is optimal scale because it is not too detailed, it's not too broad, but it's also not too specific, so people can have more options. Now, keep in mind that sometimes when you take research methods classes, the professors say that you need to use broader scales so that respondents have more options to select. Keep in mind that there is a theory called the diminishing utility theory, meaning that when you increase things too much, there's a point at which it starts dropping down, right? So in research, it says that post 9 point Likert scale, people don't value it because it creates a lot of information overload. So in this case, like Dr. Emrullah said, there's not a lot of difference between 5 and 7 point scale. Optimal is 7 point, but if your questionnaire is very long, let's say if you're asking 50 questions, 60 questions, then stick to 5 point, because it doesn't create a cognitive overload or information overload for respondents.
And another tips for Muhammad, when in your survey, please emphasize in the first question, 5 shows, let's say, strongly disagree, 7 shows strongly agree. If you don't explain or let them know, they can select the wrong answer. Also, it is better to be specific and emphasize it is the agreement scale or satisfaction scale or something, etc. And make it bold, those numbers, 5 and 1.
Here's another question. Comment on experimental design studies sample size. Any suggestions?
I just mentioned about the quantitative sample size. For mixed method, for example, let's say you can make 20, 30 interviews, again, based on the your population, maybe you can again select 400, 500 sample as a quantitative approach. So you can do the both of the mix, but I am not sure, do we have some specific citation? It should be this one or that one. If you know, you can answer it. But
Sure. So basically, what happens is that when we create this cross-sectional studies where the models are very complicated, like let's say 8 variables, 9 variables in the model, then of course we need a larger sample size to make sure that the model can run. And for that one, you did mention G power, like a power analysis, or kind of that type of thing to understand how many samples do you need. Similarly, many people use a rule of thumb, which is look at how many questions you have in the questionnaire. Let's say if you have 40 questions, then you go with 10, at least 10, so maybe a 400 sample size kind of thing, right? But in experimental studies, we don't create very complicated models. The models are very simple because you want to see how an independent variable affects dependent variables. So usually in experimental studies, you have 2, maybe 3 variables. And if you look at them, then you need a relatively smaller sample size, right? Because you are only working with 2 or 3 variables. And since it's a direct experimental study where you are manipulating independent variable to see the effect on dependent, you don't need a very large sample size to make the model work, right? It's very simple cause and effect type of thing. So for this one, you still need to use power analysis to see how much minimum sample do you need to have enough power for your findings. But most of the stuff that I have seen, maybe for one condition, you can have maybe around 50 to 60 people and it can do the job. But keep in mind, if you are doing a very simple experiment, even a very simple experiment, 2 by 2, that creates 4 scenarios. So for each scenario, you would need 50 or 60 people. That means when you multiply this 50 to 60 with 4 scenarios, that again makes around 200 to 240 total sample size, right? So kind of this idea is what it is in experimental studies. Okay, let's go ahead. A couple other questions. So this, because this question is very long, so I'll post both of that here. There's one question actually. So this person, Sidra Raza, she says, in case of organizations like SMEs, I'm seeing that innovative performance, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But the idea is this: if she has to use SMEs as the unit of sample, meaning a unit of proportion, or the unit of analysis, is there any particular sample size or a particular sample method to use for SMEs? Because SMEs are unevenly distributed in here, in there, whatever, and the sample size, the population size is unknown. So, what kind of sampling method can be used for SMEs?
for my perspective, as if I understood correctly, it will be better to use non-probability sampling techniques instead of probability sampling. But I'm not sure what I understand. So there is no specific geographic location, so that's why which one we should use. I'm just thinking about it. It's a nice question, but it can be purposeful because it depends on which kind of target you wanna have. Because they are SMEs, maybe you have some specific purpose, or they can again convenience sampling. They can use. They can try to reach them and convince them to approach to participate that study. So again, it should be better to non-probability sampling. One of them they can choose. I don't know.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Since the population frame is unknown, anyways, it would be non-probability because we don't know that complete population frame, right? So obviously we cannot use probability. Now, in the case where she says that because SMEs are geographically unevenly distributed, then you as a researcher can be a little bit creative. Because yes, it's true that in certain countries, for example, in Pakistan or in Turkey, they have some special trade zones or special economic zones where a lot of SMEs establish their offices or something, right? So they are really in one area in a country or in one area in a city. So in that case, you can do something called like a strata or a quota sampling or something like that, where you create quotas to make sure that you have even representation of different sectors of SMEs. So
Yes.
maybe, for example, you can look at SMEs related to technology, SMEs related to food and beverage, SMEs related to trade, SMEs related to whatever, right? So create 4 or 5 different groups and then take a sample from within that group so you have equal representation or you can also do it based on city. So in a country, let's say in Pakistan, you can do Islamabad, you can do Lahore, you can do Karachi, and then within those cities, you can pick up some samples to kind of have a diverse representation. I know our time is limited. I'll take maybe another 2 or 3 questions, and then we can, go from there.
For me, it's fine. You're answering very well, so I don't need to worry about it.
Okay, so this one is prolific and other platforms are mostly used these days by authors to collect data. Do you agree it is the most reliable source?
That's question I would like to love to answer, but I have never used the prolific. I even heard last year in the Midcon conference. If you have any idea, you can share that one.
Sure. So basically, yeah, these are not very reliable sources because these are online sources. Now, of course, there are companies like Amazon MTurk or Qualtrics Panel or Prolific or these type of companies that provide you easy access. So I won't say these are the most reliable sources, but I can say these are the most efficient sources, meaning if you want to collect data in a short time, then these are efficient platforms to collect data. However, you also need to understand what kind of data you can collect from there. So I got a paper to review, and this paper was related to finance, but the sample was CEOs of companies, okay? And the person wrote that I collected data from Amazon MTurk. It doesn't make any sense. Like, can you imagine CEOs of these big companies sitting on Amazon MTurk for $1 or $2 filling surveys? It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So it's really important that you understand what kind of research can you collect data for from these sources. So these are kind of crowdsourcing platforms where you just go to common public and collect data from them. So anything to do with consumer research, I would say, would be more relevant to these type of platforms, and you can collect data from them. I would also say that both our, Dr. Emrullah and myself, we have a common mentor. I would say Dr. Jihan. He did a wonderful paper on how to create better questionnaires so that you can collect reliable data from Amazon and the type of thing. So in that paper, he discussed a lot of different strategies that you can implement within your questionnaires in order to collect reliable data. So I would recommend maybe looking at that. It's on his Google Scholar. You can just go and check it out, and that can help. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
a second. I thought that the wonderful world was asking the specifically prolific platforms, but I think he's just generally talking about the other platforms. So I agree with you for everything. I can say if you have a budget, money. If I have right now, I don't have, and if you have less time, you are busy with other project. Don't hesitate to spend that money for these kind of platforms, even though their results are not maybe so much reliable, but still something, and you can save your time and energy to use for other stuff, and still you have some solid data. I think I can say.
So after collecting data, we remove outliers, etc. What else should we do in SPSS?
As I said before, let's say we remove the outliers, we check do we have any missing data or do we have a normality issue. If everything is fine, just start to do analysis. If it is the first time you are doing it, just you do exploit factor analysis or just do the confirmatory factor analysis. After that one, you can start to do SAM, structure equation modeling, to test the relationship on your model.
Yeah.
But you need to be sure 100% is everything is okay. Otherwise, it can influence your results.
Yeah, and I would also say that maybe do your homework on seeing what kind of analysis you are using and see what are the assumptions for those analysis, right? So in some cases, let's say the analysis you are doing is parametric test, which means your data needs to be normally distributed. So you look at outliers at the same time you test data normality, you look for common method variance, you look for non-response bias, things like this that are kind of assumptions for a lot of analysis. So it's not just cleaning the data in terms of removing outliers, but making sure that you are ticking all those boxes. Okay, here's another question from Engin. What about secondary data? Can a study conducted with secondary data, such as reports or statistics, be published in journals with a high impact factor?
Why not? Sometimes they are using even United Nations World Tourism Organization's data to be published. There are even some scholars, as far as I remember, Tarık Doğru, he's also Turkish scholar. I'm just getting answer to Tengin Oğlu. He's also my close friends. He is just using the secondary data. He's not collecting data. He is comparing the economic analysis, comparing the different destinations, taking their data from their governments, comparing those to countries, and writing a paper. And I think he published always tourism management. Tourism management likes this kind of secondary data, or they are getting the review from the social media or booking.com or some TripAdvisor.
Right. So I just add a couple of things here. The short answer is yes. The long answer is it depends. So the short answer, of course, there are journals that publish this and they like it because you can actually play with real world data. Tourism management does publish this, even though it's a little bit different situation, which I can explain in a moment. But tourism economics is a journal that publishes heavily with secondary data because most of the studies are published on finance related issues or economics related issues, or they use econometrics and stuff like this. So they are working with these things. Also, if you look at things outside of tourism, let's say mainstream FT50 journals and stuff like this, and you go and look at finance journals, you would see that a lot of finance journals really publish most of their stuff based on secondary data. When we come to marketing and consumer behavior or tourism or something like that, I would say that many journals are moving away from single kind of data source to multiple data sources. So I wouldn't rely only on secondary data. Again, it's mainly for consumer research related stuff, right? Then you can use secondary data in addition to primary data, so both primary and secondary data, so that you can have multiple data streams and to come up to conclusions of your research or whatever it is. Okay, this is out. Okay, this is also gone. Yes. If a variable has multiple dimensions and we want to use just one dimension from the scale, can we do it or pick and choose from the scale?
So that was the time that I met with the Faizan in 2016 or 15. I did, again, I showed you, I was using the Eisenhower theory of plan behavior, but I took I think some dimension from someone, also from, let's say some scale, they have a 4 dimension. I just got 2 dimension from them, 2 dimension from other studies. That have some problems. Either the items are crossing each other or eliminating or getting some reliability score problem. So I would suggest to use the whole scale, some solid scale. But if you think, if you combine these 2 dimensions from some studies, let's say from my scale, you got 2 of them from Faizan Ali. You need to do first, let's say EFA, at least to check it out. Are they fitting? Then maybe you can do CFA or test your scores. I cannot say you cannot do it, but I would prefer to use the whole scale instead of just picking up some dimension from some study.
Yes, absolutely right. And in these days, because there's so much research going on, there are hardly situations where you won't be able to find scales for different variables, right? So first of all, the ideal situation would be to pick up the entire scale with all the dimensions and stuff, because keep in mind, the scales that are developed, that are multidimensional, they have gone through a lot of process of scale development. And that's why they are called as validated scales. You pick up 1 or 2 of those dimensions, then you are taking a piece of things without the whole context, right? Which can really raise serious issues with the validity of your study. And then just like Dr. Emrullah said, if there is a situation where you really cannot find it and you have to take that scale as one of the dimensions from multiple dimensions, then you have to do a whole process. So EFA, like Dr. Emrullah said, but EFA would be a separate data set. And once you find out in EFA in each situations, like you have to drop items or add items or whatever, then recollect data for CFA. So it's a very complicated process of picking and choosing, right? So, okay, this is out. And then, okay. Oh, this is interesting. So can we just simply rely on recent review paper instead of putting extra effort on review and use that comprehensive conceptual model to move with ours addressing future research directions?
Let me try to understand. Can you explain to me what he meant?
Okay, so what it means is that if I am doing my model, if I'm I have to get my model, I go and do a lot of literature review. If I understand correctly, the idea here is that there are a lot of review papers. They review a lot of literature about a particular. So can we just go and pick up one review paper and look at their overall model because they reviewed the whole literature and use that as a conceptual model to deal with our study without putting extra effort on extra literature review?
Why not? For me, why not? They can do it, but again, how they can be unique than the others? How can be different than the other study from that review paper? So
Right.
okay, they can use the literature, but how can be they different than as a direction, as a model, as a theory? So they should have something different than the previous study. I don't think so there is an issue. They can use their literature, they can use their references, but for the conceptual model, they should be different. And their variable will be different. So at least they should use some different direction, the different studies. They need to add some studies as well as extra.
Right. So as far as I'm concerned, okay, so I've done quite a few
Maybe I don't understand clearly the question.
You're
That's
right.
why.
No, you are right. So I'll just add something to that. So I've done quite a few review papers, and review papers are great because they synthesize all the literature about a particular topic, right? So for instance, Dr. Emrullah, you have done a lot of research about um, uh, resident support for tourism development, right? So, okay, so now let's say if I want to do a research on resident support for tourism development, instead of me going and reading 50 papers, I can go and read one review paper that has reviewed all these 50 papers, right? So yes, it can help me understand the state of the literature, but I can't rely on that review paper. The reason
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
because review papers have something called inclusion and exclusion criteria, right? So the review papers don't include every single thing related to that topic. First of all, that's important to understand. Second thing is, now I have a paper just got published. It's a review paper, but the review process took me, I mean, the journal review process took me more than a year. But by the time we were writing the paper, we were synthesizing the literature. So the latest paper that we reviewed in that paper is from 2023. So if somebody is only relying on my review paper, that means they will skip the literature from 2024 and 2025. Right. So that's something important to understand about review papers. You can obviously use them to understand the overall body of literature, but you can't rely on them entirely to create your conceptual paper. So, okay. And this is out. And then we have two more questions. This is the second last one. Random sampling requires sampling frame, but many researchers I found stating they have collected random data at airport from departing visitors. Is it correct? So if you don't mind, I can answer this one because I understand what this question is.
You can start, then I can continue.
I can answer this question very quickly. So this is a very good observation. What happens is many times people do purposive or convenience sampling, meaning that based on convenience, they go and ask people to give them data. In English, we call it random, meaning you just randomly go to people, ask them for data, but it's not random sampling. In sampling frame, random sampling only can be done if you know the population. But if you are going to the airport and collecting data from people who are leaving or coming, you don't know the whole population, so that really cannot be random sampling. It's just simply convenience or purposive sampling. It's just probably because of the language people use random word, it just does not make it random sampling.
So as I mentioned before, also it has some problem. But I mean, I wouldn't prefer to use convenience sampling if because it's easily accessible, as you said. Let's say for the people who are in the airplane or in the airport, not airplane. I'm so sorry about that one. But maybe they cannot represent the whole population that will have some issues to us. So as you said, that randomly approaching them, that doesn't mean random sampling, which I explain the differences between probability and non-probability sampling.
And this is our last question. Can we use Smart PLS measurement model to do analysis for pretest, or can we just do it with SPSS?
I generally would prefer to use first SPSS, but you can also use Smart PLS measurement to make a model, but I mean to do SEM. So first you need to collect your data, code. You need to do data coding also in the SPSS. Maybe you can do some descriptive statistics or exploit factor analysis, even maybe CFA you can do. But to be able to structure equation modeling, definitely you need to use Smart PLS or AIMS.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we are done with our questions. One more time, Dr. Emrullah, thank you so very much for your time.
No,
I
it's
think
my
this was
pleasure.
great. And the questions were great. I'm really happy that people were listening and asking good questions. And the main idea of these webinars or these type of sessions is really to support researchers, and to learn from each other, because these questions also help me or other speakers to think deeper and critical, and then think about how we are doing things or how others are doing things, and learn from each other. So the whole idea was to create this community of researchers coming together and kind of supporting each other. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Emrullah. I know it's late in Turkey. It's also very late here.
No, it was my pleasure. Seriously, again, thank you for this amazing opportunity.
I appreciate.
Hopefully, we can make some small contribution. Hopefully, it was useful and enjoyable. And the last stuff that I can say, I will bring you everywhere wherever I am going as a keynote speaker or workshop. So you
Thank
can respond to questions. I can just do the presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your willingness to help. Take care, you yourself and all the people who are online. Take care and see you down the road.
Okay, see you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.